For as long as she could remember, Erica Pinkett had been a fighter, not only in the physical sense, but also in the emotional and mental senses. Her entire life had been a roller coaster ride, full of both triumphant and heartbreaking moments, and she had experienced both. In contrast, the storm that was developing in her life at the time was nothing. In the beginning, it was just a routine quarrel between her and her ex-boyfriend DC. Despite the fact that they had been separated for a number of months, their relationship continued to feel like an open wound, rife with tension that had not been healed. As of right now, it appeared as though it was about to burst in a manner that she could not have possibly anticipated. A retrospective of the past, Chapter 1. One of the messages that Erica received sent a shiver down her spine. It was late in the evening when she received it. The text, which was straightforward yet threatening, came from the District of Columbia and read, "We need to talk, that is not the end." After everything that had taken place, she felt an aversion to the idea of ever receiving another message from him. When they first began their relationship, it was filled with passion and promises. Nevertheless, it ended in lies, betrayal, and an excessive amount of tears. In spite of the fact that DC had caused her pain in ways that she did not believe a human could, he continued to reach out to her, as if none of it had ever materialized. During the lengthy period of time that Erica was concentrating on the message, her fingers were hovering over the keys of her phone. She was aware of the actions that she needed to do. To put an end to this never-ending loop of back and forth, she had no choice but to confront him. On the other hand, there was something else, something that she had not imagined happening. "Mr. Lawrance." Not long after the separation with DC, Erica had a chance encounter with Lawrance. He was a polite, patient, and supporting individual. He was a good man. Lawrence, in contrast to DC, had never pushed her boundaries or taken advantage of her vulnerabilities throughout their relationship. They had created a profound bond, which Erica adored with all of her heart from the beginning. Lawrence was everything that DC was not, and it was with Lawrence that she experienced a sense of security, affection, and comprehension. At this point, however, it appeared as though Lawrence and DC were headed in the same direction, and Erica was trapped in the center of the situation. At this point, the tension is growing. Anxiety was constantly present in her life in the days leading up to her appointment with DC. The feeling that something dreadful was about to take place was something that Erica was unable to escape. She was aware that DC had a short fuse, and she had personal experience with his need for control being something she had experienced. People who thrived on drama and mayhem were the kind of people he was. He was the kind of person who couldn't bear being out of the spotlight. During their conversation regarding the approaching meeting with DC, Lawrence observed a shift in her, specifically the manner that her grin became less bright. "Are you sure that this is a good idea?" he questioned them one evening as they were sitting in the comfortable corner of the cafe that they visited for their coffee. Across the table, his hand found hers, and the touch he gave her was comforting and reassuring. Erica responded, "I have to do this, Lawrence," maintaining a steady tone of voice despite the anger that was building up inside of her. "I have never been able to find closure with DC, and until we do, I will not be able to move on. However, not entirely." Lawrence scowled, but did not engage in a debate. He had witnessed the extent to which Erica's history with DC had left her with severe scars, and he was aware that the only way for her to really recover was to confront that history head-on. However, he was unable to shake the feeling that this meeting was going to end in a negative manner inside of him. "This day has at long last arrived." Erica informed Lawrence that she would be in the company of DC by herself. She was required to carry out this task without the participation of anyone else, particularly Lawrence. In order to demonstrate that she was capable of handling the crisis on her own, she wanted to test her strength. But Lawrence was a man who was protective, and he was not going to let her deal with this situation by herself. He made a secret pledge to himself that he would be close by in the event that things went in the wrong direction. Title, Chapter 3, The Gathering. By the time Erica entered the cafe, it was peaceful, and she could feel her heart hammering in her chest. DC was already present, and he was seated at a table in the corner with his back turned to the entrance. In response to the sound of the door being open, he slowly turned around, his face breaking into a sneer that caused Erica's stomach to turn. "Erica," he greeted her, exclaiming in a tone that was silky and almost too calm. "You finally decided to show up." While she was seated across from him, she crossed her arms over her chest and folded them. She had no intention of allowing him to intimidate her even once more. "We need to talk, DC," she stated it in a forceful tone. "This nonsense has gone on long enough." A look of annoyance replaced DC's smirk as it gradually disappeared. "Are you under the impression that you can simply leave me alone? Do you believe that you could find someone to take my place, such as Lawrence?" Erica kept her composure despite the rise in his voice. In response, she retorted, "Lawrence is nothing like you," and her words were as sharp as knives. "He treats me with kindness. I am respected by him. He does not put me down or use me for his own egotistical purposes," I responded. While DC's jaw tightened, his eyes became more black. "Erica, you claim that you have moved on with your life, but I know you. I am completely aware of what it is that you require, and it is exactly who I am." At one point, it appeared as though the room was closing in on Erica. She was aware of the walls of her past closing in on her, and they threatened to consume her completely. She, however, did not back down. The lady who had succumbed to his deceptions all those months ago was not the same woman she had become. She had matured now. She had become more powerful. She assured him, "No, DCE," with a voice that was unmoved. "It is no longer you who has the power to dominate me. I have gone on with my life, I am content, and you won't be able to ruin that for me." At the moment when DC was about to speak, the door to the cafe suddenly opened. When Lawrence entered the room, his eyes immediately met Erica's and remained fixed on her. This was a reminder that she did not have to confront this challenge by herself, and his presence served as a protection. "Everything okay?" There was a hint of fear in Lawrence's voice when he asked the question. Erica gave him a gentle grin, expressing her relief at seeing him there. "Don't worry about me," she murmured as she stood up to join him. During a brief moment, DC's eyes moved from Erica to Lawrence, and for a brief second, there was a flicker of something menacing in his countenance. The tension that was there in the atmosphere was so intense that it could be sliced with a knife. "You think you can just walk in here, take her from me, and everything will be fine?" DC spat at Lawrence, his words carried with them a poisonous quality. Despite his comfortable but prepared posture, Lawrence maintained his composure. It was he who stated, "I'm not here for a fight, but if you think for 1 second you can intimidate her or me, you're wrong." In an effort to maintain their separation, Erica moved in between them and held out her hands. She expressed her dissatisfaction by saying, "This is not what I wanted," and her voice was shaking. I desired to have a conclusion. This is not the case. The expression on DC's face was one of rage. "Erica, you simply do not have the right to walk away from me, not at this time, by no means." And then, in a split second, everything went off the rails. This is the attack, Chapter 4. The DC surged forward, sending his fist flying in Lawrence's direction. Almost as quickly as a blink of an eye, Lawrence sidestepped DC, grabbed his arm, and twisted it behind his back. The power of the movement caused DC to crash into a table that was nearby, which resulted in the cups and plates being knocked over. Erica let out a little sigh, and took a few steps back as Lawrence firmly grasped DC. "Well, DC, you're done," Lawrence replied in a chilly tone. "Leave her alone." There was a brief pause in the conversation. The desperation in DC's voice was the only thing that could measure up to the rage that was seen in his eyes. DC's breathing was labored. As he growled, "You don't understand," he said. "It is impossible for her to love you the way that she loved me. It's inevitable that she'll return." Nevertheless, Erica, who was standing next to Lawrence at that very time, was aware that there was no turning back. She had been trapped in a loop for an excessively long period of time, one in which DC's manipulative hold had managed to control her life. Previously, she had given him the impression that he still held authority over her, but that was no longer the case. Erica declared, "I'm done," with a firm and unyielding tone in her voice. "I no longer consider you to be a part of my life, DC. And your violent behavior is not either. This comes to an end now." By giving DC one last push, Lawrence was able to free him, which caused him to stumble backward. DC gave them a glare while his chest heaved with anger, but he was aware that the battle was already over. After turning around, he rushed out of the cafe, leaving the couple standing together with their hands intertwined across their shoulder. Getting Better, Chapter 5. There was a lot of introspection and healing that took place in the days that followed. Erica was aware that she would never be able to completely rid herself of the wounds that her history with DC had caused, but with Lawrence at her side, she felt that she was prepared to go on. They did not rush the process of re-establishing trust, not only in one another, but also in themselves initially. The lesson that Erica had learned was something that was both terrible and valuable. Real love was not about control or manipulation. It was about reciprocal care, trust, and respect for one another. In addition, she had at long last discovered that with Lawrence. With regard to DC, he had permanently disappeared from her life. And Erica had never experienced a greater sense of liberation. Within the context of this fictitious narrative, topics such as self-worth, closure, and the repercussions of unhealthy relationships are investigated. When confronted with traumatic experiences from the past, it is essential to stand up for oneself in order to promote personal growth and healing.